Oh, clicking on the wrong thing. Clicking here. We're gonna do this. All right, in the chat box, I'm going to put a link. It should be I don't think you see the other two. It should be this one right here. If you want to click on it and see if you will get this. Oh, yay. It says you joined. All right. Right here, we're going to brainstorm just a little bit. I don't like the little options I have for the tickets right now. So I wanted to come up with some others. And one that we came up with in one of my other blocks was to each ticket worth 1 extra point on a quiz or test up to 5 points total for 1 quiz or test. So you could say 5 tickets, and you could then turn those in, or say you want to use them to get 5 points on a quiz or test for extra credit. I'm trying to come up with some other ideas. I know in art class they come up with some things that maybe we were face to face, they could buy a snack if they had so many tickets, or they could, I don't know, there's just different things. Is there anything you can think of that we could use the tickets for? If so, you can add a little sticky note by going over here and clicking here, and you can add a sticky note and put something there. Get my door while we're just trying to brainstorm. I don't like all the options that, let's see, on the online spinner, we had free assignment redo, but I let you redo assignments anyway. Here's the add 5 to any assignment. I was doing test or quiz because it adds more, that's the higher percentage. This was like choose odds or evens instead of doing all of them. That doesn't necessarily, that would be more to me a math. Um, I mean, I guess we could have a a classwork pass maybe. Um, I don't do, really late takeoffs. So, that really doesn't help. My bell ringers are my attendance. So I was just trying to come up with some other options. So if you think about it, we'll add one. You've got access to this, and you can add it here. While we're thinking about it, we'll go on and look at today. We're going to go here. And if you don't want to see week 1, you click here, and it makes it hide. We're going to go through the attendance first. We're going to actually do this together. So I'm going to go into student view. And because I did this with the other class, it says resubmit, and I'm going to just click on this. And there was nothing there, so okay. All right, so this is going to review scientific method material. So you have your teacher wants to design an experiment to see if feeding my dog raw eggs makes her coat shiny. So independent variable is the cause. So what would cause her coat to be shiny? If you look here, it's going to be what?
The raw eggs in the food.
Just the raw eggs. So what you would do is for number one, that's the independent variable. So it's just going to be raw eggs. And there should always just be one thing. So what she's going to add to the food is the raw eggs. And then what is she going to look for to change? What is going to be the effect?
The shininess of her coat.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I forgot how to spell shininess. I don't think that's right. Maybe that doesn't look right. But it's not underlining it. I don't like that. I'm going to get how shiny coat is. All right, then the control group. Now, you got to think about it. You wouldn't just do this with your dog. You would probably have a group of dogs. And so you would want one group to not get the raw eggs and one group to get the raw eggs. So the control group is sort of the normal group. So this would be a group of dogs that do not get raw eggs. Spelled right. And so, in other words, everything is going to be done like you normally do it. And then 4 is the experimental group. And then this will be the group of dogs that gets the raw eggs. And then a necessary constant, the things that you would need to keep the same between the groups. If I were doing this, I would probably want to keep the same breed of dog. I may would want to feed them at the same time. If I'm adding a cup of food, is that's what the amount of food they're getting would be the same. So those are the things we're looking at. So you would pick one of those to write as a constant. So maybe feed at the same time each day. Because you only have to put one. A lot of times I'll have you list at least 3, but anything that would need to be the same between the groups so that nothing else could possibly influence that. And then you'll submit that and we'll be done with that one. Here we get stuff out. All right, then what we're going to do next is okay, that was last week. Okay, we're going to go here, and this is going to review what our knowledge about scientific method, and we're going to actually do this one together. CER means claim evidence reasoning, and there'll be other times I may give you, or at least one other time I'll give you a scenario and we'll write an answer in this format that I'm going to show you today. And so that's what we're going to spend most of the time doing. But I wanted to mention you have a getting started assessment here. What this will cover is if you go back and review the class syllabus, make sure you read through it, and then either click here to see the PowerPoint or on the notes assignment here and go through that PowerPoint one more time, and then take this getting started quiz. But we'll do this together. If you type it while we do it, then all you'll have left to do is the getting assessment at the end. So we're going to open this up, and I'm going to read this to you. You go ahead and click on submit assignment if you want. We're going to read this, and this is sort of your format. You're going to have a sentence answering the question. You're going to have 3 pieces of evidence that supports your answer. to the question. You're going to explain how and why your evidence supports this claim, and we'll have a concluding sentence. And so once you've entered your answer, I want you to respond to at least one other classmate's post. And so here is the rubric for that shows you how I will grade for that. So you can click on submit assignment to get the text box. But I'm going to actually do this over here. And so, and then because I've shared this with you, you'll also have a copy of this. So let me get it's easier for me to read it off the paper. All right, so we're going to look at spontaneous generation, and we're mainly looking at how scientists back in the 1600s set up their experiment and if they follow the scientific method as we know it now. So as we are looking at this, I'm going to read through. The first paragraph is just going to be some basic information. John Baptista von Helmont was a Flemish scientist and physician during the 1600s. He studied various things, but is known for his experiments related to spontaneous generation theory. Spontaneous generation theory stated that living things came from non-living matter. For example, fleas could come from life from dust, or come to life from dust. So in other words, they believed that dust caused fleas to begin living. They had others that rotting meat would cause maggots to form. They didn't realize that the maggots were the baby flies, and flies actually laid eggs on the rotting meat, and that's where they came from. So that's where spontaneous generation came from. There's a lot of silly ones that they believed. But Van Helmont created an experiment to test his hypothesis, and his hypothesis is that sweat provided an active principle. That's something that's going to bring life, brought mice to life from dust. So that's what he wants to test. So here's his experiment. To test this, he put a sweaty shirt and grains of wheat into a box and waited to see if any mice were spontaneously produced. Every time he conducted his experiment, mice appeared to be chewing their way out of the box within 21 days. Now, from this, I don't know if he checked it every day or if he checked it every 21 days. But based on the description of his experiment, Van Helmont set up his experiment. Did he set it up correctly and follow the scientific method? So you're always going to start with that question in one of these. So down here, I'm going to underline right here. You're going to start with that question. And you're going to either be thinking yes or no. And then we're going to reword that question into a statement. So let's think about this. He's had a box, so he only had one box. And he put two things in it, a sweaty shirt and wheat. But he's saying that the sweaty shirt produced the mice. But he's got two things in there. So we know from our scientific method that you're going to have how many causes in an experiment? One or two?
One.
One. So he has two because we know that mice are going to come to the wheat because it's food. And so he has two things there. So we don't know if they're coming for the food or they're coming, being produced from the sweat. So he had two variables. So just with that, we know that he didn't set it up correctly. So we're going to, in a sticky note, I'm going to put the claim, and we're going to say, and I'm just retyping the sentence, the question, and making it into a statement.
Is this what I'll do for the
This is what you're typing in the text box.
Okay.
I'm going to do it sentence by sentence on these little sticky notes, and if you can make it come up where you can see both at the same time, you can type it as I do it. So you're just taking the question, turning it into a statement. So everything is the same here. And then I'm going to say, did not set up his experiment correctly to follow the scientific method. So you always take the question and you're going to turn it into a statement by either making it either agree as a affirmative to the question or as a negative. So in this case, we're saying that, no, he did not set it up correctly. But we just used the sentence and made it a statement. All right, I'm going to put the evidence in pink. So, didn't mean for that. We're going to, we talked about the two variables, but it also said that into a box, he had one box. We know that when you do an experiment, you have two groups, right? You have a control group and a experimental group. So he only had the experimental group. So we can put for a piece of evidence is that Van Helmont's experiment has no control group. So that would be your next sentence. And then we said that his experiment had two independent variables, but he claimed it was the sweaty shirt that provided the active principle to produce mice. All right, so we have to have three pieces of evidence. So we said that he didn't have a control group, that he had more than one independent variable. And the other thing, if you remember in the reading, if you've got a box, back in the 1600s, it probably wouldn't be cardboard. It would be probably made out of wood, and it would probably be wood slats, so there'd be spaces in between so things could get in and out. It may not have had a top. We don't know if he covered it or not. So he didn't control other variables. So remember, we have to have constants. So we can say that Van Helmont did not control for other variables in the experiment. So there were ways that the mice could have gotten into that box other than being generated. So we did our claim, which is an answer to the question, and we have three pieces of evidence, and now you have your reasoning. And your reasoning is going to be a little bit longer because you're kind of going to have a transition sentence first, and then you're going to have an explanation for each of the three pieces of evidence, and then you're going to have a concluding sentence. So I'm going to put those in separate stickies. So I'm going to start with the transition sentence. So we know that to follow the scientific method, you have to have certain steps or characteristics that you have to meet. All right, so that's sort of the transition sentence. So we know that it has characteristics. If you don't want to use characteristics, you could say requirements, certain steps it has to meet. But there are certain things that is met. So that's sort of a transition there. Then we're going to get into our first piece, reasoning to back our first piece. And we know that if you don't have a control group, one that was kept normal, so without the sweaty shirt, you can't really compare because you don't know what really caused it. So you've got to always have the control group. So without the control group, it is impossible to support your hypothesis because you don't know what would happen if your independent is not present. All right, so you have to know what happens without the independent in order to know if the independent had a cause. So that's always important. So that's sort of the second piece of this reasoning piece. And then you want to think about the next one, two dependent variables. So by having, or independent variables rather, two independent variables, it is also impossible to figure out whether the shirt or the wheat grains provided the active principle. Should be that. That would be the next sentence. I have to do these in individual sticky notes or we won't see it all. And so you can see that I've taken the first one, I've explained why that's the case. I've taken the second one, I've explained why. Now I'm going to take the third one. And this is the last one. I'm going to say lastly, Van Helmont's experiment came to a faulty or false, you could put, whoops. Conclusion because he did not control for other variables. We're going to give an example like isolating the box from the environment. So that means making sure nothing from the environment could get inside the box. So he didn't do that. And then you always, anytime you write a paragraph, you're always going to have a concluding sentence. So we're going to say, so in the end, his experiment came to the wrong conclusion for these reasons. And I can't make that much bigger there with it out covering some stuff up. And so that's how you do one of these. In physical science, we won't have as many of these to do. In biology class, we'll probably do more of them. But this gives you, it gives you a way to apply what we've been doing or we've talked about. So this is the main assignment for today. We'll give you a few minutes if you need to finish it up. And all you have to do is to review the class syllabus. And the scientific method PowerPoint, and then take that quiz. And if you haven't finished anything from last week, make sure you go back and complete that.
Okay.
Do you have any questions of anything?
No, and I just put those in the order that we just like.
Right.
went-
Start with the yellow, do the order I have them going left to right.
Okay.
And then for being on and keeping your camera on and participating, you've got 3 tickets today. I've made note of that. The tickets will go into Miss Kruger's main drawing, and I'll keep record of your tickets so that you can choose when you want to use them. Right now, points on a quiz or something, or if we come up with something else that you'd want to use them for.
Okay.
So I'm gonna just keep a running record of it. So if you don't have any questions, that's it for today.
Okay.
And just make sure you do the assessment, and if you missed anything from last week, to go back and catch up.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. See you tomorrow.